Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call this meeting of the City Council and the Bloomington Port Authority to order. I'll call the Bloomington City Council to order. And President Erickson?
I'll call the Port Authority to order. And so we want Carolyn to call the roll for both.
If you could, Carolyn, if you could call the roll for both the City Council and the Port Authority.
Okay, for Council, Bussey.
Here.
Beloga.
Present.
Carter.
Present.
Coulter.
Present.
Bowman.
I did receive a note from Councilmember Lohman. He's not able to join us this evening.
Thank you. Martin.
I'm present.
Nelson.
Here.
And for the Port Authority, Erickson.
Here.
Bussey.
Here.
Carter.
Present.
Hunt.
Here.
Keller.
Here.
Lunds.
Here.
And Peterson.
Here.
Thank you.
And thank you, Carolyn. If I could remind members, if you could please mute yourself if you're not talking directly, so we don't get a lot of feedback. We got a lot of folks on the line tonight. We've got a couple of items of business here on the agenda this evening. I'd like to alter it just a little bit in terms of exactly how we're going to go. I'd like to do the approval of minutes, if that's okay with our council members. And then under new business, we've got two things: legislative update in the Bloomington Central Station Residential number 4. Under new business, if we could flip those two so that we do the Bloomington Central Station first. The legislative update will be a bit shorter, and I just want to be respectful of the time of our guests here from Bloomington Central Station and that team. If everyone is okay with that, I would like to do that. And Commissioner Lunds mentioned a new face on our grid this evening, and President Erickson, do you want to introduce our newest member to the members of the Port Authority?
I would be delighted. We're delighted to introduce and welcome Carla Henderson, who's the new Community Development Director. She's also Shane's boss, so we know that he has to be especially nice around her. But Carla, we're just delighted to have you. We had Larry Lee for many years, then we had Eric, and so we welcome you, and we'll look forward to having you participate and get the benefit of your wisdom and knowledge and things. So maybe you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself for just a minute.
Sure. Thank you, President Erickson. Good evening. My name is Carla Henderson. I've met some of you, council members and mayor. I get the honor and privilege to work with Shane every day, who has taken me on a tour of South Loop already. And just, it was incredible to see the projects that have occurred and what's coming down the pipeline. Super excited about it. I'm learning that Monday nights are going to be late. So I'm not scheduling anything early Tuesday morning. But this is my 8th week here, and I have relocated from Michigan. I am in the Luxembourg Apartments. One of the developments that occurred in the city a number of years ago, and I am loving being here and looking forward to meeting all of you when it's safe to do in person, and super excited about all the activity that is occurring in Bloomington. So thank you again, President Erickson and members of the Port Authority and City Council.
Well, we're so delighted to have you, so thank you very much. So, Mr. Mayor, do you want to do your minutes first than me, or we can, whatever?
Actually, how about President Erickson, if we could, just for Carla's benefit, how about if we go around with the members of the Port Authority, just give kind of a quick rundown, who you are, where you work, how long you've been on the Port Authority, anything else you might find relevant. So, President Erickson, why don't you start us?
Okay, I can start out. I've been around since the dinosaurs came in. Jim Lindau asked me to go on the Port Authority, and with the exception of period of, I guess, 3 or 4 years when I was the senior vice president of the University of Minnesota, I've been pretty much on it all the time. So at any rate, it has been a great deal of fun to watch this develop. It's really been exciting for me now the last several years, because the fruition of a lot of the planning and the work that has been done over a long period of time, and the investment by the city is paying off. And I'm just very optimistic about, I think, what our potential is. We've had some hiccups, obviously, with the COVID and all the things we had to go through with them all, but that only underscored, I think, the work that the Port Authority and City Council have done over a long period of time in terms of having projects that were very conservatively managed so that we did not get into financial problems with them. We've had a situation where we obviously had to react and adjust, but I think it's just been a great situation, and it's been my privilege to work with just a great group of people in the Port Authority, many of whom have had almost as long a tenure as I have working with the city, although not necessarily on the Port Authority, but I know Cynthia Hunt has been, and Steve Peterson, and so the wealth of knowledge on this, Rob Luntz, I mean, everybody, it's really been fantastic. So I'll shut up, and I don't know who wants to go next. Cynthia, do you want to go next? You're muted, Cynthia.
Yeah. Thank you. Been trying to be good here. So Cynthia Hunt, I've been on the Port Authority now for 15 years. And I, before that, as Bob mentioned, I served on the Planning Commission, and that was at the very start when the Mall of America was approved, and I was on there through the opening. My background, when I joined the Planning Commission, I was doing national construction lending, commercial real estate for U.S. Bank, and I still work with U.S. Bank in commercial lending, but had the pleasure of being on the Port Authority with this group, many of the same faces. And then I also serve on the on the Charter Commission too. So a little bit of different things with the city. So.
Who wants to go next? Steve, do you want to do?
Sure. So my name is Steve Peterson, and I'm trying to think of when I first went on the Port Authority. I think it was around 2012, I'm guessing. But kind of going back in the Wayback Machine, back when the dinosaurs that Bob was talking about were dying off, I joined the Planning Commission in 1996. So that would have been probably right after Cynthia was on the Planning Commission. I was on the Planning Commission for 4 years. I was the chair in 1999. And then at the end of 1999, I was elected to the City Council, and I was on the City Council for 14 years, ending at the end of 2013. And like Cynthia, I'm also a member of the Charter Commission. And in addition, kind of other interesting things I've done, I was on the board of the Convention and Visitors Bureau for quite a while. I think I started that in 2002 and went off that board in 2019. Yeah, that's probably enough. And I, in what I call the real world, I work at Microsoft, and my current focus is on speech to text processing in kind of recorded meetings, like a meeting like this. So,
Commissioner Keller has also been on the board a long time. Tim, do you want to talk about yourself? Tim, you're muted. If you...
Yeah, I'm here now. I'll be the one who has the most technical difficulties, which is because I'm a lawyer who does technology work for some reason. This is my third crack at this organization, and it's my third crack because I think it's really an important thing. I have, for the last however many years I've been part of this, extolled the importance to everybody I can about local government, and in this community, the Port Authority in particular, and how much input, how much the input that we have affects the city and our own personal lives. So I've always been very, I don't know if proud's the right word, but gratified to be able to be part of that process. And God knows I've known Bob Erickson since the dinosaurs too, probably. I'm old enough to have known him with the dinosaurs, but I only came in after small mammals who eat their young came in. So that's I'm on my second mayor. So that too. So I will cease and desist.
Commissioner Luntz? You're muted, Rob.
And I left my cursor right on it too. Good to meet you, Carla, and welcome. I'm a couple years into retirement from a career in dirt, bricks, and mortar. I'm a real estate guy, commercial real estate. I break out in spots around houses typically, but my work with the city goes back to about 1994 when I was put up and chaired the Board of Assessment Review that was became a citizens panel versus under the purview of the city council, who I think was very glad to get rid of that duty. And I've been on the Port Authority now. I think I'm in my 7th year. So it's very interesting, and I'm still doing dirt, bricks, and mortar. So welcome.
Bob, just for clarification, did you mean to say from time to time there are spots where you do housing, or where you're around housing, you get spots on yourself?
Both.
Just want to make sure I know who I'm talking to.
We don't do houses.
Okay, well, it's a good thing this is a remote meeting.
Okay, and then we're also fortunate to have the mayor and Commissioner and Councilwoman Carter on the committee too. So I don't know if you two want to say a little thing about yourself or whatever, but we'll give the floor to you.
You know what? Miss Henderson and I were able to meet, I think last week was it? And so I'll go ahead and pass, but thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, did you want to?
I had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Henderson on her first day on the job, and was very happy to do so. We've talked a couple of times since, so welcome. Glad to have you here, and this is an interesting, sometimes challenging, always productive group. So glad you're here with us today.
Okay, well, I guess, Mr. Mayor, do you want to start the minutes off?
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got a couple of minutes that we have to take care of. First, I need a motion for approval for the concurrent meeting of the Port and the City Council meeting from April 6th. Our meetings were included in the packet. Unless there are any changes or additions, I'd look for a motion by a member of the City Council to approve the council portion of those minutes.
So moved. Coulter.
Got a motion by Councilmember Coulter, I think a second by Councilmember Beloga.
Okay.
To accept the meeting minutes from the April 6th concurrent meeting of the Port and City Council. Hearing no further discussions. I'm stuck on trying to call Denise's name. So Carolyn, if you could call the roll, please.
Sure. Bussey,
Aye.
Beloga,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Coulter,
Aye.
Martin,
Aye.
and Nelson.
Aye.
6-0.
Motion carries, Mr. President.
And for the Port Authority, we have two sets of minutes, so I would entertain a motion for the approval of the concurrent meeting on April 6th.
Moved by Peterson.
A motion by Peterson, do we have a second?
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections? If not, Carolyn, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Erickson,
Yes.
Bussey,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Since I wasn't there, I guess I should abstain.
and Peterson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the minutes are approved, I guess 6 with one exception. And then we had minutes also, another set of minutes. We had a meeting before the concurrent meeting on April 6th. So to entertain a motion for the approval of those minutes.
Moved by
Move for-
Peterson.
Second by Hunt.
Okay, did you get that, Carolyn?
Peterson and Hunt, yes.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Any additions or corrections? If not, Carolyn, do you want to call the roll on those minutes?
Sure. Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Abstain.
and Peterson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Minutes are approved. Thank you.
Next up, as we discussed, moving on to new business, doing a little flip-flop between the legislative update and the update on the Bloomington Central Station, residential number 4. So we'll move forward with the Bloomington Central Station residential number 4. Mr. Rudlang.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and Council members. So tonight we have before you consideration of a term sheet and agreement outline for the 4th phase of residential at the Bloomington Central Station project. I'm going to share a PowerPoint that I'll walk through here. We also have representatives from McGuff in attendance as well. And so what we'll do is I'll give a little background on the BCS development. McGuff will make a presentation, Mark Fable, and then we'll go through the detail in the term sheet and however much detail the council and Port Authority would like. And then the action tonight, again, is just to consider staff moving forward with developing the agreements to reflect the items in the term sheet.
Yeah.
So with that,
Shane, maybe we could ask people during your presentation, everybody except you could mute because we're getting some reverb back. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob. The South Loop plan goals, build on the district's unique mix of assets, transform the district, accelerate development, establish it as a branded place, and make it sustainable. I'm still getting a little bit of background from somebody. I will move on, but so the BCS Master Development Contract. So originally this project was going to be a 10 to 12 phase project over a relatively short period of time. If you think back to 2004, 5, 6, when that project and that original contract was being executed, things were going swimmingly in the financial markets and so on. It's taken a lot longer to develop the project, but I'm happy to note, especially with this project and what we'll talk about tonight with grocery and things like that, things are starting to accelerate out there, which is great news. So 2005, the master contract was executed. It relies on TIF for this project. The public-private investment ratios were set as estimates in that project, and we've done basically 5 pieces of the project today. There's some sub-phases and some public improvements that we've intermixed into the Reflections condos in 2006, the Hyatt Hotel in 2014, the Health Partners headquarters remodel in 2016, Indigo in 17, and the Fenley, which opened last year and is currently leasing up. The master plan continues to be tweaked. The original plan had 2.2 million square feet of additional office on the west side of the site and residential on the east side of the site. The Health Partners right in the middle, and hotel and office north of the Bloomington Central Station Park, 2.5 million square feet of office. So the Indigo, again, was built in 2017, and credit to the Port Authority and City Council for taking the risk on building new residential in South Loop. I think it's one of the key factors that has led to not only these projects at BCS, but there are about 8 projects in the pipeline, 8 residential projects in the pipeline in this neighborhood. Thanks in large part, I think, to what the city and McGuff and Lennar did with proving the market with the Indigo project. Fenley's there to the south of Indigo. Reflections further south was built in 06. The Hyatt, and then this yellow box is where the 4th phase of residential would get built. So we've got about $400 million or more completed to date, about $600 million to go. We have got a number of extensions for the TIF 5-year rule, which is good now through 2026. And in a couple of years, we would have to go back to the legislature again to ask for an extension if that is something that we think we financially need for the project. The gist of that is that TIF districts in Minnesota are set up so that you need to start your project within 5 years after the creation of the TIF district. And with a big 50-acre multi-phase project, those rules just don't work very well. And so that's why we've sought and gotten that extension a number of times. So the residential 4 project, again, just west of the BCS Park along the far west side of the project. And just off this map here is the Bloomington 20th Avenue Light Rail Station. The Central Light Rail Station is here, and American Boulevard Station is right up there. The big thing with this project is it brings grocery to the neighborhood. We've spent a lot of time and effort over the past 5 or 6 years intentionally with 2 different development groups, actually. Once with McGuff a couple of years ago, and once with Terratron about 5 years ago, where we met with most grocers in the market. I mean every single one, but a lot of them, to try to get grocery in. And we're happy to say that we're very, very close to being able to deliver, albeit a relatively small, but yet a grocery store in South Loop for all these people that are becoming Bloomington residents in this area. And so, summary of the project, it's 404 units, 14,500 square feet of grocery. We'll have a liquor component as well. The project would have 9% affordable at 60% AMI, which is 36 units, meets the opportunity housing ordinance. The unit split is there. I won't read that. It's about a $118 million project as it sits today. Those prices are somewhat volatile based on a number of things that I think Mark Fable can talk about. Wood prices are one of those for sure. Excuse me. The public investment would be $22.9 million in present value. Would be delivered through a pay-go note, where the risk again is on the developer for that money flowing through. Unlike Indigo, where the city did issue debt for that project and took on more risk to get that project done, the Fenley and this project would be both done via pay-go note. That $22.9 million would be delivered through the TIF generated from the project and the TIF generated by the larger BCS project. So all in-project TIF revenue, no outside funding sources, except for potentially a grant. And so we've spent a fair amount of time doing a needs analysis to make sure that the project wouldn't happen but for the public investment. And we put in some recapture agreements, one for the apartments and one for the grocery, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail here in a few minutes. And it's undetermined whether or not the developer will use opportunity zone financing for the project or not, but it is somewhat likely that will be part of the equity stack on the deal. We talked about doing condos as part of this project. We know it's a strategic goal of the council to deliver more home ownership opportunities in Bloomington. Really, what this comes down to is the cost. Concrete construction is typically what you do for condos. That's what Reflections is, and most condos are built that way. Not to say that all condos are built that way, but most are. McGuff worked with a market study consultant, and simply spoken, this market didn't support luxury rents at this time or luxury costs. And the other issue with condos these days, and has been since the 06 boom, is what we call the liability tail. And there were a number of condos that either some were built improperly and some may or may not have been built improperly, but the ability of the ownership groups to sue the contractors and developers who built those projects went on for years, and a lot of contractors got sued later, and it made them very wary to build condos where that liability tail doesn't exist for rentals. And so that is a factor that's out there. I don't think anybody has a great solution for that these days. In 2017, the legislature did try to make some improvements to the state law to help fix that liability tail, mostly through requiring condo associations to do maintenance plans so that you didn't have leaky windows that were getting into drywall and things like that. So there were some improvements there which helped some things out, but it really is still an issue for builders. And then as part of the needs analysis, there are a number of reasons why the project needs subsidy. Certainly the affordable units are a costly portion of the project. Second item there, rent. So a little bit of rent goes a long way on any of these projects. If you can get another nickel, a dime, a square foot in rent a month, it really just falls to the bottom line of the project. Land costs the same, building the structure costs the same, and a little bit of rent, the extra quarter or so that you can get on a project in Edina or even on a project nearby that might have better views of the river valley, for example, really is just a huge impact to the finance ability and the rates of return on these projects. Third one, construction costs, wood costs have been, in the news a lot, but they're just crazy right now. Fourth one, acoustical considerations. This project is closer to the runway, so it costs a little bit more to insulate the project than some of the projects that are further away. Fifth one's a big factor too. So public infrastructure, and I've got a diagram of this here in a second, but the streets next to this project haven't been built yet. And so those add and are currently in the $118 million project budget. So for many projects, those
Shane, you cut out for some reason.
I think that's the new international symbol for, give me just a minute. Stand by, hold on.
You will hear me now?
Yes.
That was very strange. Just totally dropped me off of audio. Sorry about that. In any case, where I was saying public infrastructure, a lot of the streets have been built next to these projects. And excuse me, that's not the case with this one. We'll be building those along with the project itself. And then grocery itself is extremely expensive in order to get that project done. But I think the council and board have supported trying to find a way to do grocery. We've talked about lots of different ways to do it over the years. And again, only recently have we been successfully engaged with a grocer to deliver that. So again, as I mentioned, we'd have two different recaptures on this project, and the recapture threshold on the apartments has been moved down again. As we stated on all these projects, we want to continue to kind of ratchet down the threshold where recapture would kick in. And so this one would be at 105% of the base pro forma. And then grocery, this one is based on EBITDA, but what it really does is it allows the grocer to make a minimum amount of EBITDA or profit. And then there's a kind of a complicated waterfall. And again, we can go into as much detail on this as the council and board want to go in. But when we get to the going through the outline, I will move through it relatively quickly, and then folks can stop me and slow down if they would like to. And then the last design consideration is, again, if the board is going to invest in these public infrastructure projects, we want to make sure they're as future-proof as possible. And we've been doing this on a number of these where we allow these projects to be built such that the parking can be removed and replaced with more units or retail or what have you in the future. It doesn't really cost that much to actually do this, put construction joints in the right place so that these ramp levels can be peeled off later and something could be built there. So this is a really low cost way to try to help future-proof these projects for parking demand that will likely go down due to transit, rideshare, driverless cars, etc. So be part of it too. This is in the packet as well. A quick summary of the public investment and the ratios to date. This one is high for the reasons that I mentioned before. And the schedule. So the Port Authority took a first cut at this in December of 2020 at one of the early term sheets, just to get a feel for the port's thoughts on the project, in particular to the high subsidy level due to grocery. Last night, the council considered the entitlements and approved them. And then that's where we are tonight on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Haha, Star Wars joke. And then in a couple of months, we would bring the development agreements back if the council and port direct us to move forward with that tonight. Construction would start in the third quarter of this year, and they'd start to see people coming into the project in Q2 of 2023. So with that, you probably heard enough from me for a little while. We'll let Mark Fable talk for a few minutes. He'll just go into a little bit more detail on the project itself. So I'm going to stop sharing. And then Mark, you should be able to share.
Carolyn, is there a way for you to allow me to be able to share? The share button is not highlighted. There it is. Thank you. Great. Perfect. Let me get back to there we go. Thank you, Shane. Again, my name is Mark Fable with McGough Development. Mayor Bussey, President Erickson, members of the council and the Port Authority, thank you for the opportunity to present a little bit of the halftime entertainment. Shane has a lot of tremendous detail, and it's great detail. And I'm going to do a little more of the kind of the soft presentation and then give it back to Shane for some more detail. First off, I just want to thank the city planning staff, public works staff. It's been a tremendous collaboration, as always, with the city staff. The Port Authority staff has been also excellent, and that there's a tremendous amount of work that's gone on into this term sheet because it is a lot of new topics. The grocery store adds some layers that we haven't dealt with in the past, and we all learned a lot going through this process. Specifically, you know, Mark Reichel, Becky Schindler, and Shane spent a lot of time every single week learning and talking about new ideas to solve challenging topics through the process. So thank you very much for that involvement. With that, I'd like to really jump into storage lockers and see if we can solve that. Wait, that's already been solved. Okay, good. Whew. I thought for a second we had to go back to that topic. I'm moving on. I'm moving on. So on the screen in an image that we're really leveraging for the design and the branding concept for the project. We're trying to bring the outdoors inside and really try to have a different type of design of a project that hasn't been developed or designed out at BCS. And so with that, I'll really just quickly go through some slides here if I can get there we go. I think many of you have seen this image before, but just to describe the concept, it's really trying to incorporate a industrial feeling building and more of a urban project into our suburban location. So again, the dark gray is the stucco and the lighter color is a metal panel with great detail in that metal panel. On the bottom right-hand corner is the grocery store, and you'll see some more images of that in a second. And then throughout the project, you can see the very small front door is red. We have lots of little highlights of red throughout the building. Just a little bit of a design touch, and then a lot of wood timber and wood treatment to warm up the exterior as well as the interior. So with that, just to give you an example, this is the lobby as you enter the building. So concrete floors, concrete ceiling, and wood, really trying to warm up and have a very comfortable experience. And the green wall over by the TV on the right is again trying to bring in that nature and comfortable feel inside the building. This is one of the elements that we're really excited about. Behind the doors, behind the bike, is a very large bike room and a hallway. And we want this room to be the way that the people on their bikes or walkers go through from the main lobby, out the door, through a courtyard, and out to the many, many miles of trails that exist all around the South Loop area. So we call this our base camp, and it's effectively, it's a bike shop, it's a craft room. You can kind of see these two small red components here. These are extension cords hanging from the ceiling to work on these craft tables and a concrete floor again. And behind the wall over here is a sauna, where the sauna is not just a fitness room sauna, it's actually a sauna where it's a social experience. And people can go outside onto this patio from the sauna that's around the corner to the left and sit outside on a fire pit or in a green courtyard. And this garage door can open up to kind of, again, to really celebrate that opportunity to get outside and be active and really get into the Minnesota River Valley, which is so special. The main event, the grocery store, again, we're super excited. We've been working with a great partner, and they have dug in deep into making this possible and to get as far as we've gotten to date, which is phenomenal help. And the grocery store will have a liquor store inside of it, and I'll show you a little bit about that in a second. And the idea is that this grocery store model is there to serve the commercial office, the hotel guests, and the residential density that's growing quickly around this South Loop area. The grocery store will have ready-made foods and an indoor seating area as well as an outdoor seating area as well, really trying to activate that Central Park and be that great destination for the South Loop area. Just for fun, just so you can see that it's kind of real here. We got on the right-hand side is the Central Park, and the top of the page is the north side. So in the upper right-hand corner of this 14,000 square foot space is the liquor store. You walk in the front door off of an exterior heavy parking area in the street. And this is the main entrance, liquor store over here. You walk in, great produce, dry goods in the middle, frozen components on the far left-hand side. And this is kind of this ready-made kitchen opportunity where foods are made and prepared. And then over here, you can see this indoor cafe seating area and outdoor cafe seating area, and then back of house with the storage in the backside. So that's what a very dense, small grocery store starts to look like. It's exciting, and we're thrilled to be as far as we are. I love this picture on the right. You've all seen it before. I just think, I look at that picture and I get so darn excited about what could possibly be that community destination for everyone in South Loop to be able to, come and go and see their friends and interact with people and have it be a real sense of pride for the neighborhood, which is super exciting. One announcement that we're not making yet, but I'm sneak previewing for you guys, I guess, is we're very, very close to signing a lease with a cafe, coffee shop that we've been working with for a little over a year and a half, actually. COVID put a little slowdown to our process, but our hope is to have that lease signed within the next 2 weeks and have construction starting over the summer and open a phenomenal spot sometime around September, October of this year. So that's a big deal. And it's great. It's great for South Loop. And the grocery store would be another amenity. There's other great projects that are being built within the South Loop, and they'll bring in more amenities. Slowly, we're developing that neighborhood. And really, it's like, again, as Shane mentioned, so much credit goes to the Port Authority for making this, and the city for making these projects happen. Overall, our schedule through the summer will be, we're at the design development level of our drawings and construction pricing. And the hope is around August to have all those things come together for a final price and a closing that would allow us to start construction in September, October timeframe. That's still yet to be determined, but there's a lot to get done from now until then. And if everything goes well, it'll be earlier. If it's just normal, it'd probably be more like October. So that's our overall time frame. So with that, I will obviously allow Shane to take back the reins and get into some tremendous detail, and I'll be available to answer questions at the end for sure. Thanks again for your support.
So Shane, spending a lot of my career in the food industry, one of the things I was looking at on your plan, Mark, for the grocery store is where are you going to bring the food in? Where are your loading docks and things? Are they below the level, or where are they at?
Yeah, a good question. So the loading dock is actually off this page over here, and there's a room there, and there's a 2-truck loading dock, and then obviously garbage and recycling that works back there. And there's a mezzanine level above that space where the mechanical space will be placed so it doesn't take up space in the main floor area. So there's a pretty big loading dock and truck staging area behind a screen wall on the north side of the project.
And then just another quick comment, since I've been a dinosaur on the Port Authority, but also have been involved in the food industry for longer, and that is that 14,500 square feet was 40 years ago was not a small store, and 14,500 feet you can pack a lot of variety and things in. The principal reason you need to go bigger is when you get into higher volume stores, you need more shelf space for the same items so that you don't run out during the week on busy items. So this is really something that, it should have very good variety. And I'm just excited about the concept. And the other thing, just to say again, Mark, is McGuff had been wonderful partners with the Port Authority over this whole period of time. And it's really been a pleasure to work with you and see these things come. And I know there's been some things that are difficult. When you started Reflections, you thought this was going to be great, and then we hit the recession, and it took a long time some very patient money to make the thing come around. But at any rate, we certainly appreciate the way McGuff has approached this, and delighted to see this store.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, I will continue on. I'll share this presentation back up again. And so now the really fun stuff. And as I mentioned before, veterans of the council and Port will recognize these outline and agreement summaries. And again, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly, but I'm happy to slow down and go into as much detail as the council and Port wants. This follows directly along with the attachment in the packet. Some things that we haven't talked about yet, McGuff will maintain a 5 to 10% ownership of the equity position in the deal. The tax increment from the project itself funds about 50% of the public investment, and the other 50% of the public investment would come again from the larger BCS project TIF pool. I shouldn't say pool because we're not pooling. That's a term of art in state statute. So the larger BCS TIF account, I should say. The public improvements, again, 31st Avenue, which doesn't exist today, and the road on the north side of the project, and then the pedestrian way along the north side of the light rail tracks. And then, of course, the parking structure in the middle. And again, here's the grocery component. Business subsidy. So this one is a little bit nuanced here because the purpose of a lot of the public investment is to get housing and then grocery. And so business subsidy, like on the SIC deal, for example, is in place because that's a job creation economic development project, where this is a little bit different focus. So we're suggesting that the council waive the business subsidy on that. Transient lodging, so Airbnb, VRBO, not allowed in Bloomington today, but on a number of these projects that we've done recently, we've put restrictions in the development agreement so that should VRBO be allowed, in South Loop in particular has a high probability to become, a big housing project could become a big hotel. And generally speaking, we want hotels to be hotels and apartments to be apartments, but we allow 20%. And that conversation is part of the planning commission's work plan that the council will be seeing here in the near future. And then, yeah, I mean, again, this project is a TIF pay-go note where the risk of the project is really sits with the developer. On the recapture agreement, we did a relatively complicated IRR waterfall recapture agreement on Fenley. We replicated that here, so still complicated, but at least we've done it once. We just ratcheted down the number where the recapture starts to 105%. And then on grocery, there's a lot of text in the document about how the grocery recapture works. I think this is a relatively easy way to understand it. EBITDA is profit, basically, earning before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So between 0 and 2%, the grocery tenant gets that on an annual basis. Anything above 2, if they had borrowed during a bad year from the grocery business reserve, which is a concept in there that build up a pot, they pay back any city recapture reserve that they may have borrowed in a shortfall year. And then they fund this grocery business reserve up to $675,000. And then this money goes into the recapture reserve on an annual basis up to this maximum. And then if they make, call it good money, above 4%, it goes 25% to the tenant, 75% to the recapture reserve. And so, again, it's set up so that the grocer can make money. And then as soon as they start making kind of lowish to normal money, they fund these reserves. And then in shortfall years, they can borrow from these reserves. It kind of evens it out because you're going to have some good years and some bad years during the 8-year recapture. So we worked on this concept to try to smooth that out so that, you know, just as the economy rolls, the fair to the grocer, and we're also fair to the public dollar as well. And so I'm not going to go through all this text because I think the diagram showed that. Again, happy to dive into that if folks want to. And then just, you know, we want to require that this grocery store is there for 8 years because who knows, you know, the grocer could, you know, for any reason, you know, the corporate reason or whatever, go out of business in year 1, and we want to make sure that, you know, we have a grocer there for as long as we can. We think it's going to be successful, and there's going to be a grocer there forever, to use that word. But if something happens to the grocer business, we want it to stick. And then the Opportunity Housing Plan was approved last night as part of the entitlements. This is 36 units at 60. Again, the bedroom mix. There are easement and maintenance agreements out at BCS. The roads out there are quasi-public roads, meaning that they're funded and built funded by TIF a lot of times. So they're built with public money. They contain some public characteristics, but the liability and maintenance responsibilities of that falls to the developer, and that has a long history in on-street parking and site triangles and and the type of curb and the type of pavement that sits out there. I remember early in my career standing out there on site. Shane, moved to the left and to the right. You are a tree. Can we see around the corner? I will never forget doing that. But that's why these easement and maintenance agreements are in place to shift the liability to the developer who wanted to build these kind of unique roads out there, and the city at the time didn't want to take on the liability and build those. We do a third-party cost review on all those public improvements to make sure that the city and the public is paying for concrete at the right number and things like that. And then a special assessment will have some documents come through the city council to shift special assessments to free up the parcel that this BCS4 project would be built on. So that's free and clear of special assessments. And we've done that before on a number of these as well. And then I'd be remiss without reminding everybody that these term sheets are non-binding. There's a big legal paragraph in the term sheet in the attachment that describes that. But if we were in person, Julie would kick me under the table if I didn't mention that. And so with that, again, we'd be happy to dive into any of these details. What we're asking the port and council tonight is to give us the green light to go and draft the various documents that would memorialize this deal, and then we'd bring those documents back for formal approval at another concurrent meeting in June or July of this year, and the project would then theoretically break ground in the fall. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we see the hand? Commissioner Luntz?
Yes, Shane, how big is the land parcel?
Commissioner Lunds and President Erickson, the land parcel is about 4 acres.
Okay, thank you.
Council, any questions on this that are not related to storage?
I don't know if Port Commissioner Peterson looked like he had his hand up. I'm not sure if he did or.
That wasn't me raising my hand. I was just reacting to the comment about the storage.
Well, I have to tease Mark Fable a little bit. I think you understand now that you're talking to Councilperson Carter as well as Commissioner Carter.
I made that mistake last time, and I apologize to her a month ago. Very embarrassing.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I don't know. I think we're in a situation that, do you want the Port Authority? We have a resolution. I guess if everybody has any questions, I would entertain a motion on the behalf of the Port Authority. Then it's on page 14. The motion is to direct staff to develop agreements based upon the draft term sheet for the BCS project for consideration future City Council and Port Authority meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Carolyn, did you get that down?
I did. I have Carter making the motion, second by Luntz.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion? If not, Carolyn, do you want to call the roll?
Yes. Erickson.
Yes.
Bussey.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Hunt.
Aye.
Keller.
Aye.
Luntz.
Yes.
Peterson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion
7-0.
carries.
And I would look for a motion from the City Council, the same motion to direct staff to develop agreements based on the draft term sheet for the BCS4 project for consideration at a future City Council meeting.
Beloga, so moved.
Second, Martin.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beloga, second by Councilmember Martin. On the motion as stated. No further discussion? Carolyn?
Bussey.
Aye.
Loga.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
Coulter,
Aye.
Martin.
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
6-0. Thank you.
And then I'll leapfrog you, Mr. President, and we'll come back to the Port Authority, but looking for a motion to direct staff to develop agreements based on the draft term sheet. Wait a minute, we just made the same. Never mind, it's the same thing worded twice. I apologize. I thought we had two separate motions that we needed to make, but I apologize, we do not. Mr. Fable, Mark, thank you very much for this. I know this, as Bob said, this has been a long time coming, and this is a great example of long-term, long-range thinking, basically playing the long game on an area of our city that the people like Bob Erickson and Jim Lindau and Gene Winstead had a vision for and could picture and see in their mind how it could turn out, and to partner with an outstanding group like McGuff to try and make this a reality. It took patience, it took time, it took some resources, it took some more patience, more time, and eventually it's exciting to see what it's becoming. And it really is. Just to drive through there now it's exciting now to see it, and to see this proposal to move it forward even faster and further, I think it's just outstanding. And I think the work that you folks have done to kind of create that residential anchor in the area that have led to other developments and other developers realizing, yeah, this is a place, and this could be a place, and this is an urban neighborhood in Bloomington, and it's a viable place. And so thank you much for the work that you have done. The work that you have done, the work that all of McGuff has done, your commitment to this. We sing your praises all the time, and it's always well-deserved. So thank you so much for what you've done for this.
Thank you very much for those nice comments. Love working with you guys, for sure. Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions on this one, Council? And I will ask for the president also. Anything from the Port Authority? Anything additional?
I think not. I guess you've got our other item on the agenda, the legislative update. So
I think seeing no other hands, yeah. Shane, if we could move on to the legislative update. Thank you, Mark. Have a good evening. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members, Mr. President and commissioners. So the next item is legislative update for the council and Port Authority. While some of these items are maybe more strictly related to the city council, there's still a lot of crossover with the Port Authority. So we decided to put it on this concurrent meeting agenda, in particular because the council meetings have been going quite long and we haven't gotten to it in a couple of weeks. So with that, I've just got a short deck on the legislative update, which I'll share here in a moment. My daughter informed me it was May the 4th after school today. Happy May the 4th. She also informed me that there is a, is it May the 6th be with you on either the 5th or the 6th, depending on how you depending on how you say that. So there's that. All right. A couple quick updates. So 494 Vision Project, that's the title of the project. So from
Shane, we've got the gray thatch screen on the showing right now. Thank you.
All right. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. 494. So the 494 Vision Project.
Shane, I'm still seeing at least a portion of the gray patch.
Yeah, that's my WebEx. It should be going away. Hopefully it'll pop up. Is that better?
Yep.
There it is. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. 494 Vision Project, 169 to the airport. So there's been a fair amount of work and discussion on that in the past couple of months here. We have identified about 4 funding sources that could help that project, either the phases or projects they're calling them that are currently in kind of final design, or the larger project from one end of town to the other. There's an INFRA grant that MnDOT applied for, separate from the work that we have been, I don't know, spearheading is maybe a term you could use, but the federal community project funding earmarks process through Congressman Phillips' office. Mid last week, he did post on his website, Congressman Phillips, that this project is included for $50 million through one of the processes that are happening through what used to be called earmarks. But there's still a bunch of different vectors of earmarks, and honestly, the process is still being worked out, and people are still learning about the funding opportunities for projects like this. And so, but it officially is on Congressman Phillips's ask list, which is great. There's the Federal Transportation Infrastructure Bill, formerly called the Jobs Bill. This is the big Biden bill that was proposed about a month ago now. It's not a lot this time, but that's getting a fair amount of discussion on and off on the federal level. And so we want to create awareness of the 494 project with all of our stakeholders. And then there's also, CARES leftover money that the state may or may not have, the state surplus, and then combine that with the American Rescue Plan funding that the state has. That will either flow through the legislature or through MnDOT, depending on how the state legislature and the state government plays out through this session and through lots of discussions outside of the legislature. There's a fair amount of money out there for projects like this, and we've been lobbying for putting some of that money towards 494. And so we're working with cities, Hennepin County, and the various commissions, 494 Corridor Commission and 35W Solutions Alliance, Chamber of Commerce, and others to get support up to the congressmen and others that are making the decisions on these projects. And so what's currently being talked about or being funded right now are projects 1 and project 2, elements 3, 4, and 7, and element 6. Basically, it's the stuff around 35W and 494, and the other projects that are kind of a little bit further out, with the exception of element 5, are unfunded to date. There's, it's a really expensive project. We're $200 to $300 million, or even more short for the project from one end of town to the other. But still, there's $211-ish million that have been identified to date, and we may need another 50 or so to get project 1 and project 2 done. And so that's why Congressman Phillips, the ask there was for $50 million, and the INFRA is in the same neighborhood, to try and make sure we have enough money for this first big phase. And so that's exciting stuff. We were super lucky after all the work that everybody did a couple of years ago to get the Corridors of Commerce money, and hopefully with some more effort, we'll be able to tie down some more funds for this super important corridor in our state. So 230 to 280 million for project 1, another 10 to 15 for project 2. This ties back, of course, to the elements on this map, and then a couple hundred more for the rest of the corridor. Next thing, Senate House Omnibus Bill has a number of things that are contrary to the city's legislative policies and are very concerning to local control. Local Housing Trust Fund matching grants were not included like they were on the House side. Preemption of the zoning authority. So this is probably the biggest concern. It prohibits cities from instituting design standards like brick or better and things like that. It just defaults down to the building code and doesn't allow cities to go above that. It has a cap on, it doesn't have a cap on park dedication fees in the Senate, but that's been discussed a fair amount this year. And we're currently working on a letter that would go out to the conference committee on this topic that would be specific to Bloomington's objections to the various pieces on the Senate side. The House side is much less objectionable. Another item, not necessarily legislative, but has been in the past that we want to make sure people are aware of because we think it's such a big deal to Bloomington, frankly. The landfill that is south in Burnsville. There are a number of landfills there, and I guess it's hard for me to keep them all straight. But the issue is the open landfill, the Burnsville sanitary landfill, the one owned by Waste Management, located directly south of Dewan Golf Course. And, should that landfill expand, it would be higher than any point in Hennepin County. I know it's not in Hennepin County, but it would be higher than any point in Hennepin County. And so that's a huge concern. So we sent another comment letter, even though they weren't asking for comments, to the MPCA. We provided copies of that to the council, signed by the mayor and the Bloomington legislative delegation. So all 5 legislators signed on to that to raise awareness again and let people know that Bloomington opposes that project and that process. So on the good news side, so the House and Senate tax bills, they were meeting in conference today. They didn't approve any of the TIF bills. It was on the docket, but they talked about it, but they didn't do anything with our 2 redevelopment TIF districts at 700 American and 35 at the 35W / Lindale Aldrich area park and ride. And so that's all good news. I think we're in pretty good shape there. If there's a tax bill, again, this week will be an important week. And then the other primary action item on our on taxes in our legislative policy is the exemption for the sales tax for the construction of Fire Station 4. And right now, there is a general sales tax exemption for public safety that works for Fire Station 4. So they got rid of all of the one-off bills and put in a general exemption, which is good. And then last quick update, hospitality legislation. The stakeholders that are working on this are meeting with legislators currently. We're again in a supportive role, but we're not driving the bus on this one. Meetings are happening. It's late in the session. The chances of legislation happening are out there. It's just that it's really late in the session, so we don't know how it's gonna work out with that. And so we're continuing to monitor that and be involved in various conversations and feed folks information. But others are working on that more actively than we are. And with that, be happy to answer any questions on that or go into any more detail if the council and Port Authority want to.
Council, any questions?
I think everybody's so quiet tonight. I wonder if people are meetinged out after last night.
Well, I'll ask if anybody in the Port Authority has any questions. We didn't have a meeting last night, but it's a nice night outside.
I am not seeing any hands up on the council side.
Well, I think, Mr. Mayor, we maybe can take and have motions to adjourn. So, Shane, is there anything else that we've got on the agenda?
Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Council members, that's it for tonight.
Well,
very good.
I guess the Port Authority could go first if you want, Mr. Mayor. I'll entertain a motion for the Port Authority to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Hunt moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Peters has seconded. Any further discussion? Not, Carolyn, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Erickson,
Aye.
Bussey,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Hunt,
Aye.
Keller,
Aye.
Lunds,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Port Authority is adjourned.
Council, I'd look for a similar motion.
So moved, Mark.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Martin, a second by Councilmember Carter to adjourn. Just to note that Councilmember Coulter had to step away. I think he was called away or he had something else going on. So we're down to 5, I believe. But with that, no further discussion. Carolyn.
Thank you. Bussey,
Aye.
Beloga,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
and Coulter absent. Martin,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
5-0.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
The City Council is adjourned. Very good.
Good night.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Good night, everybody.
Have